what we're going to do is going to grab a brand new X-Acto blade. I don't really recommend using used ones because, you know, if they have any kind of imperfection in it, it will make more marks. So you simply don't want to do that. And what I do, there's a bevel, a very sharp bevel, obviously, on these Zofa blades. I actually go down to a low angle and I match that bevel. And so I can actually get underneath there and pull it apart. And some of it may or may not come off very easily, depends on the sticker. And again, I'm just gonna, and this is actually, you know, practice makes perfect when it comes to mastering the angle of the blade and making it, cutting everything, shearing everything flush. And we'll just kind of do the same thing here. And let's see how this goes. That's not too bad. Okay, just make sure you don't cut towards yourself. You just have to control your muscle movements, because obviously these blades are really, really sharp and they will cut you. So rule of thumb, don't cut towards yourself. All right, so we're back. Just a little footnote. If you guys have any gummy feeling onto this, some adhesive, or you have some oils like greases, now you can use paint thinner or Varsol. You know, they won't harm the lacquer finish, but they will shine it up. So you got to be very careful on how you use these chemicals and what you do to use them. But since we're respraying this, in either case, it wouldn't matter because we're putting another coating on top of it. So it will, the last coat that's put on will be the thing that you see. So I'm just going to take off the lid. And again, this is to get rid of the waxes and greases and any kind of other buildup. It will not remove dirt, so it's not recommended. You know, you still have to use soap and water for the cleaning process. So it did remove some gunk that was on there. We don't know what that gunk would be, but it's now not there. And when it comes to chemicals, just make sure that you just keep your hands clean all times. You know, wear rubber gloves. All right, so the first thing we're going to do after all that, everything's off, no more adhesive or gunk or any kind. So what we're going to do is scuff sand this. Now, I use a fine sanding sponge when it comes to the detail work, and as well, unless I have to grind down. What I mean by grind down, I'll use a coarser grit like 320 just to sand something smooth. You know, it could be just a little mark, and this won't do it because this follows all the contours, good and bad. So this more or less feathers out my sanding after 320. But as for what we're doing now, the scuff sand and respray, we just want to scuff it up for our top coats to be able to adhere on and bond with this surface. So I always start from the inside out and work my way outward. That's with any kind of panel or detail project that I have. I usually do the inside and work my way out. So I start inside, I push down so it forms the detail of itself, and then without sanding through, right? That's really important. You don't want to sand through the finish so it exposes, so it takes out the stain, and now you got white wood that you have to touch up as well. So I always do that. Just a few swipes there, and just make sure that the sponge is getting through all the detail work. Okay, and then I'll do my flat panel. Now, when I'm sanding, I'll sand the edges, the outside edges first, because believe it or not, parts of like this here get missed. Okay, so when you do that, now I'm going to do the full length, and that will even out everything on the inside panel, and everything's evenly sanded. And now you have the stiles and rails. I don't like to cross over, even though this is a fine grit. I usually don't like to cross over very much. And when I do, I sand it out. So it's all nice and level and flat. You don't, when we put the top coat on, you won't see any transparency of any scratch marks going the wrong way. So I'm just gonna basically go up to the middle, start with my rails. Okay, and I go back to this side here. Do the same with the other side. And I usually put center pressure. The edges will always cut in faster and harder than the center. So I usually put on center, and you'll see in a second what I mean by that when I do my edges. Okay, now with sanded the rails, now I'm going to sand the stiles. The stiles go right through. So if there is any cross scratching this way, this is going to take it out. That's why I do my rails first and then my stiles last. So now everything's going the right way, the right grain direction. And you'll also be able to see, your little tiny pits that we're going to need to fill to make it look flat for our top coat. And you'll see me, when I'm sanding something, I'll sand this way with the sponge, not this way, because these edges will actually make micro crevices, straight line imperfections that you're going to be able to see possibly in your top coat. So that's why I always sand like this instead of like this on my panels, especially. Say when I go like this, there's no lines to be made. So I'm just going to keep on going here. Now I'm going to go on the edge. I'm going to go back and forth. When I go back and forth, I'm putting finger pressure towards the end, and then I'm pulling it back, and I'm using my thumb or backhand pressure to get this angle. So I rotate my pressure, keeping everything flat, but I rotate my pressure back and forth so that everything gets hit. Let's see if I can do it this way for you, just so that you see it. Okay, so you can see some imperfections there. Now just keep on rotating so you can see. Okay, one more. Okay, with the corners. Okay, flip it over. And this one's not even, it's a drawer front. So some styles that have drawer fronts, you don't see the center panel because the hardware covers it, or the door, it's the drawer itself will cover it. So that's probably why they were lazy and they didn't do this. This almost feels raw, to be honest with you. If anything, there's just a sealer coat on there. So not too impressed. I usually do everything all the way around. But yeah, I'll just give this a quick scuff. Backside, obviously, I'm not going to worry too much about. So I'm just going to make this one fairly quick. Okay, break your edges. Okay. All right, so now we got this all sanded up. Now, I'm going to grab another rag here. Just kind of knock off the loose stuff that's on here. Okay. Now with this blade, I got a little indent there, and I see a little bit of blue. I don't think you can see that very well, but yeah, I'm just going to dig that out because I don't like the color of blue. Oh, it looks like a piece of tape. Okay, so it looks like a blue piece of tape on there. Just going to make sure it's all gone. Oh, there's still some tape in there, so I'm just going to dig that out. Just nice and gingerly, carefully. Okay, so now we got all that done. Now we can see all of our imperfections now. When it comes to, you just have to use a reflection of light. And if you're inexperienced and you just don't want to look again and again, you can always tag with a piece of masking tape. Just tag where all the marks that you want to look after until you get used to the trade itself. And then you kind of get routine, the system built up, and you can actually do this without that. You can just go along the whole thing and just fix all your imperfections.